Hey friends and family, a commenter recently expressed that I spend too long introducing the content and not getting into the content fast enough. So today I thought Hey, welcome back everyone. Before we begin, please make sure to smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. Not enough everyday ordinary people are out here trying to teach financial literacy without also trying to sell you something you don't need. So just a simple like helps get this message out to as many people as possible, and we appreciate it. So today I want to talk about getting to retirement and becoming wealthy. The two aren't necessarily the same. Getting to retirement just means that you're wealthy enough to be able to retire and to live on your own net worth, your own wealth, pretty much the same way that you did while you were working. Like your lifestyle kind of remains the same. You go into retirement, your lifestyle doesn't change all that much, and that's pretty much it. Whereas becoming wealthy means that you can grow your lifestyle comfortably over a period of time and then be able to continue to grow that through retirement and live a lifestyle probably beyond your means if you were to just have continued working and spending the money that you made. So first I want to cover retirement. How do we figure out if we have enough money in retirement and how do we plan for that? So generally, like the rule of thumb, I guess, is that people will say you need to save 15% for retirement. And if you look at those numbers, it does kind of make a little bit of sense. And so we'll take a look at that on the Wealthy Idiots website real quick. So this is the compound interest calculator on the Wealthy Idiots website. It's free. Just head over to wealthyidiots.com and you can mess around with all these numbers. And we're going to look at what 15% might look like for someone making about $50,000 a year. So we're going to say you start off with nothing. 15% is $7,500, and we're going to assume that you work for about 35 years. Now, generally speaking, you would put in what you expect your annual growth to be. The S&P 500 on average has returned over 10% returns, but we're going to adjust that a smidgen. So if we were to say 10%, by the time we hit retirement in 35 years, we'd have about $2 million, which is outstanding. But that doesn't account for inflation at all, and not accounting for inflation would be a big mistake. So in order to account for inflation, I like to just change this number to a 7. Take whatever number you've got minus 3, and that's about what it would be if we were to account for inflation. That's not universal. As we know, the last year, inflation has been tremendously high, but generally speaking, inflation averages somewhere between 2 and 4-ish%, so 3% is a good number to go with. And that brings us down to about $1 million. So about $1 million in what currency would be valued at. So $2 million in 35 years is worth about $1 million today. And then we could just pretend like inflation isn't a thing anymore now that we've adjusted for it. And we could see that we would make about $1 million. And if we followed the 4% rule, we would make about $41,000 a year on our investments, and we can withdraw about $41,000 a year throughout in retirement. And the general argument for this 15% amount is that, you're not going to need all the money that you make now in your current income in order to retire. So kind of like the Dave Ramsey plan, you buy a house, you pay that house down, you invest, you get to the point where you have $1 million worth of investments, you have about $41,000 worth of income, you don't have a house payment anymore, so you don't have to worry about that. You also don't have to pay this $7,500 a year anymore, so you don't have to worry about that. So $41,000 in retirement might actually get you further than the $50,000 you were making while working. So that's planning for retirement using the 15% rule. You do have to have quite a bit of time left on your working. 35 years is what I calculated here. If you have more time, like let's say you start at 20 years old and you plan on retiring at 60, that's a 40-year time frame. It's going to give you more time to build that net worth. But I like to kind of rework this a little bit and work the opposite direction. So what I mean by that is I like to figure out what it is I want to be withdrawing at retirement, and then how do I get to that point? So if I want to be withdrawing from retirement, let's say an even like $50,000 a year, I'm assuming that 7% rate. I have 35 years until retirement, which I don't, but we'll do that in a second here. I just need to update my annual contributions to about, let's say $8,000. Nope, that's not enough. $9,000, that's pretty close. And that's how you would work backwards, trying to figure out what you might need to be investing per year in order to get to this number. Now, if we were to break that down into months, we'd need to figure out how to invest $9,000 over 12 months, and we would get about $750 a month. So that's quite a bit. Most people are not saving or investing $750 a month, which means that it's incredibly important to start getting there. So for someone like me who's starting a little bit later in life, I have closer to about 25 years left of working before I want to retire. I actually want to retire before that, but worst case scenarios, 25 years. All right, so we put that in. And we see that drops tremendously. Our annual return is going to be about $22,000 or my annual retirement withdrawal will be about $22,000, $23,000. It's not enough if we're trying to retire with at least 50 grand. So I have to update what I'm contributing every year. And 15,000 isn't enough. 20,000, about 20,000. So in order for me to retire with a $50,000 a year income, I have to be saving $20,000 per year at my current age to get to that point. So this significantly highlights the importance of starting early. Compound interest really impacts the most as you start early. And this is basic retirement calculations. You figure out what you're going to need in retirement. You adjust for inflation using really simple techniques. It doesn't take too much to figure that out. And then you kind of work backwards and figure out what your annual or monthly contributions have to be in order for you to get to that retirement period and live comfortably. Some of the things that you might have to consider as you're looking at these numbers is that lifestyle inflation is a thing. So if you're 20 years old and you're investing 15% of your income, and then your income is only $35,000 at 20, and then by the time you hit 40, your income is now $80,000. Your lifestyle has inflated. The 15% is higher. That's something that you're going to have to figure out. You're going to want to invest as much as you can early on, and then you can taper off later in your life as you start to realize that you're in a good place. So a good example would be, let's go back to the calculator. We can look as if we're 20, making less money, but also we have less things that are dependent on us. We have less responsibilities. We may not have a family yet. We might be able to live at home, or maybe we've started house hacking and we could save quite a bit of money. Let's take a look what that would look like. All right, so let's pretend for a second you did make $35,000 a year at 20 years old and you're living at home. You can invest as much as possible. So we're going to try and invest 50% of our income, 50, which would be $17,500, would be half of our income. So some of that is going to go to taxes because the good old government likes to get their piece. And then you're going to use the rest on maybe things that you want or need, depending on what your situation looks like. But we're going to invest as much as we possibly can. We're going to do it over a 10-year period. So from the time we're 20 to 30 years old, and our estimated growth is still 7%. So by the time we get there, we're going to have $241,000 by the time we hit 30, almost $242,000, which is outstanding. So we did a pretty good job in our 20s. Now we're interested in starting a family. Let's say we kept that investing going at 17.5, even though our income kind of grew over time. We just left it at 17.5 for that time period. And then let's say we hit 30 years old and we just stopped. And we take this $241,000, we'll paste it right here. And we'll remove that. And we'll say we have another 30-ish years worth of working. Even with inflation adjustments, we're going to hit $1.8 million, and our retirement withdrawals will be about $73,000. So that does pretty good, in even considering that maybe our lifestyle inflated, we were able to make more money. Maybe we made $80,000, and inflation adjusted, we made $80,000 per year, and we didn't invest or save anything else. We could continue on that path into retirement without missing a beat. But let's say we still continue to invest, some amount of money. Let's say we continue to invest the same amount over another 30 years. We would have almost $3.5 million with almost $140,000 of annual income at retirement. So I think it's really important to start early. It has high impact, and you can continue that amount through your lifetime, even though it may not actually add up to 15% of your income. So if your income still keeps going up, you don't really have to adjust this. But if you can get in the mindset of not including that dollar amount as your lifestyle is inflating, pretending that it doesn't exist and continue to invest it, it'll have tremendous dividends and paybacks when you finally hit retirement. So head over to wealthyidiots.com, check out that compound interest calculator. But now let's talk about wealth. What's the difference between someone who's trying to become wealthy with an ordinary income or an ordinary, like the average wealthy idiot, as opposed to someone who's just looking at retirement? Becoming wealthy, and the difference, and the main key difference here, is that you're trying to replace your lifestyle, your outgoing cash, with investment appreciation, investment income in some way, shape, or form. So it doesn't always have to look like cash, although sometimes it can with things like real estate. The ultimate goal is like if we're spending $50,000 a year on our lifestyle, we want to get our investments to a place that replaces that $50,000 a year as fast as possible. And then we will continue to grow from there. And we'll see how we're doing in order to grow from there. So let's say, for the sake of argument here, we make $50,000 after taxes. Let's pretend that taxes aren't a thing for right now because that makes things a little bit more confusing. So $50,000 after taxes. And our objective is to see how low we can get our actual expenses to be. So let's say we knock our expenses down to $20,000 a year. We've figured out that we can live on $20,000 a year. How long would it take for our investments to replace $20,000 a year? That's the inverse calculation of the 4% rule. So we take the amount of money that we want per year and we multiply that by 25 and we would get $500,000. So we want to get to $500,000 as fast as possible. And we have $30,000 to contribute every year because we're spending 20 grand, so we can invest the other 30 grand. And we have a starting of zero. How long would it take us to get to $500,000? So 10 years, gets us pretty close. Let's add on 12, a little over, 11. We'll say 12. We'll shoot over just a smidge. So it looks like it takes us 12 years if we were to follow this plan to get to the point where our investments could technically cover our lifestyle. Now that might increase in speed if you were to do things like real estate, but if you're just investing in the S&P 500 and index funds, you'd get to the point where your investments would grow at a faster rate than your spending in about 12 years. Then after that, your investments continue to grow, you continue to invest. But one of the things that we've noticed is that people tend to get better at producing more and more income as time goes on. So as you start to realize the impact of the money that you're investing, you want to put more money into this to get that to grow faster, and you want to reduce your lifestyle at a slower pace. It just kind of is the natural way that works once you realize how this stuff works. So let's say after 12 years, we're now 32 years old. We have $536,000. We'll put it in here. And we're at the point now where we're making maybe closer to 100 grand, but we're still only living on a small portion of that. Let's say we've increased our lifestyle a bit, but our lifestyle's only increased to 40. We can now invest $70,000 per year. But you're also going to notice that we want to get to the point where we can now replace 40 grand per year. If we needed 500K before, we're going to need $1 million this time. So in order to get to that point, would take us about 4 years to get to $1 million. So essentially what we're doing is we're trying to lower our spending as much as possible, increase our investing as much as possible to get to the point where our investments could cover our lifestyle if it had to. This actually has a name. This system is called FIRE. Financial Independence, Retire Early. And the FI part, the financial independence, is where your investments could cover your lifestyle if they had to. And the retire early part is you quit working then after that fact. We usually don't recommend. I personally can't retire early. I just like doing things. I usually don't recommend people retire early, even under FIRE. It's a little risky in that, you don't know what's going to happen over a course of a significant amount of time. I'd recommend at least having some kind of income, even if you're going to retire early. Now, to become truly wealthy, so you notice we're not messing with huge numbers here. We're messing with average numbers for most people, like families can, when you're young, you don't make very much money, but you can put a lot of it into investments because you have very little responsibility. Then as you grow older, you make more money on average. You could take the more that you make and put it into investments instead of growing your lifestyle at an extreme pace. And the more and more intense you are at this, the more you start to figure out that this grows faster. The first time it took us 12 years to get to that point, the second time it's 4 years. And as we start to grow our lifestyle a little bit more, but we also grow our income a little bit more, it's going to take us 3 years, 2 years, 1 year, until eventually we hit the point where it's zero. And we can basically increase our lifestyle on a steady pace without having to catch up with our investments. Our investments will actually be growing much, much faster than what it is that we grow our lifestyle at. So let's take that same person. We moved over the $1 million. Let's say they continue investing $70,000 because they're that serious. They're going to have 20 more years because they're at 36 years old, plus 20 is 56 years old. They will have 6.8 million, almost 6.8 million, and the 4% withdrawal rate will be 271,000. So by the time they hit 56, their lifestyle will not have grown fast enough to even get close to this 271,000 number. In fact, if they continue to grow their lifestyle, let's say just a little bit every year, we at about 10 years, we're already past quite a bit past 100 grand, which might be that person's entire income. And it goes pretty quick after that. So if, let's say, retirement at 60, that means that they have another 25 years worth of investing. They're almost at $10 million at this point. And that's assuming they can't find any other income, that their income remains fairly close to the same. Their lifestyle is, can continue increasing as their income increases, and they just leave their investments at what it's at currently. So the same person could become wealthy at a pretty rapid pace if they were to invest large portions of their income earlier on. Then you can taper off as you get older, and you get to a point where now your investments are growing so fast that the annual withdrawal rate is going to be much, much higher than what your lifestyle is and what it is that you spend. And now that you've seen how that works, people have a tendency to want to go find more income. So they find better jobs, or maybe more jobs, like they do Uber at night to find more income, or maybe they get on YouTube and hope that people hit the like button and subscribe so they can get a little bit of ad revenue and invest it for their retirement as well. But it's not impossible for the average person to become wealthy. The trick really is just compounding interest over time and putting as much money as early on as humanly possible. And you'll notice that most wealthy people, they'll talk about a period in which they lived off of barely anything, that they were able to invest and put all their dollars back to work for them, or as much as they possibly can. There was a point in which I was living off of about 20% of my income at one point and investing the rest. And now even I don't live off of over 50% of my income. So even though we've relaxed a little bit, we still don't live over 50% of our post-tax income. Most of that still goes into investments, and it still grows. And we're hoping to get to the point very soon where we get that financial independence number, which is just in a couple of years, assuming the market kind of turns around, which we're all hoping it does. And then after that, it's going to continue to grow at a rapid pace so that when I do finally hit retirement age, whether or not I want to retire, it's not going to matter at that point. I can choose to do what I want to do because I have the funds to be able to supply my family a lifestyle greater than what we had when we were younger. And that's exciting. I want to be able to share that with my grandkids, be able to do stuff, maybe travel, and I'm pretty amped about that. But it really does. The difference between retirement and wealth is how much you're willing to sacrifice up front in order to build as much wealth as possible. And if you're just interested in retirement, then you just need to figure out how much you need to put in every year in order to get to that retirement stage. And you might have to increase that a little bit as you grow your lifestyle over time, but it's fairly easy to get there. And if you start earlier, like in your 20s, you can get there pretty rapidly, and you don't have to spend as much money getting there later in your life. But if you want to become truly wealthy, an actual wealthy idiot, the key is fairly simple. Spend as little as you can, invest as much as you can, and then go find new ways to spend less and to make more money so that you can invest more and have that compound over time. The next thing you got to do, this is the only 2 steps right here. The next thing you got to do is find good investments that are going to grow at a great pace over the long term, because we're not looking at short term. We're not day traders. We're not even week or month traders. We're trying to invest over things that we think are going to grow over the long term at a good rate. And right now, it looks like the best place to do that passively is into index funds, like the things like the S&P 500 index fund, or maybe the total market index fund has some of the greatest growth rates with the least amount of effort on our part, so that we can get the highest amount of compounding and returning over time. The other place, if you're willing to put some effort into it, it looks like the best place is real estate. I like to do a combination of both. In order to make sure that I'm safe and secure, I put into the S&P 500 and whole market funds. That automatically gives me a lot of good diversity. It doesn't prevent me from, volatile moments, but then I also have real estate, and my real estate income and cash flow can kind of help out the index fund area. I could grow that, and the appreciation and stuff in the index fund I use in order to buy new properties for real estate, and they just kind of go back and forth. With a high amount of money going into investments and a good average return over the course of that lifespan, you're going to see tremendous amounts of growth to the point where you will be wealthy fairly soon, and those numbers will start to look crazy ridiculous, like $10 million for someone who never really made more than $100,000 or just a little bit over $100,000 a year. It's not impossible. It just takes extreme amounts of discipline, some patience, a lot of putting off what you want to do now to later. What do they call that? Deferred gratification? That sounds about right. And liking and subscribing to Wealthy Idiots. Check out wealthyidiots.com. We have tools there that'll help you get to this point as well. We also release articles weekly and videos weekly to make sure that you're on your track to become either retired or wealthy successfully and not be like the 60+% of Americans who have almost nothing in the bank and saved. This Wealthy Idiot community is trying to make everyone in our community as wealthy as we can so that we can be secure, safe, and happy in retirement and in the future. So thanks for stopping by. I appreciate it, guys. I hope I got into the content fast enough this time, and I'll see you guys next time.